This is Athlete's Edge, episode number 9. We had a bit of a brief hiatus. I actually moved. But you can find us at Pure Vita Labs. And if you use podcast 20 on PVL.com, you get 20% off direct on any online shopping. Today, really excited to have someone that you will recognize, I'm sure, on the podcast today. Sports analyst now, web series host, trainer, mixed martial artist, occasional actor, Anthony Carelli, but you may know him as Santino Marella. Now, do you still, Anthony, I guess, get called both a mixture? Do you still kind of get that, people still call you by that, and are you okay with it? Or is it kind of in you?
Yeah. I'm definitely conditioned to respond to Santino, but, in my personal life now, and it's I get mostly Anthony, but there's still the occasional person that comes in and gives me a Santino, and I'll still turn my head automatically.
Yeah, you're automatically conditioned to. Well, it's funny. I feel like we're kind of brothers from another mother. We both grew up in sort of that same area, around the same age. And you're from Mississauga originally. Retired in 2014. And great career in wrestling. Actually, I guess you'd consider that quite a long career, just based on kind of the injuries and things like that. But one of the cool things is sort of how we got connected, and why you reached out, to PVL and to me, I guess, initially, to start to work together and support each other. So maybe kind of go through that.
Yeah. I had neck surgery in 2014. So my in-ring competition was done at that point, and I was trying to get back in shape. There was a little bit of a mess up with the first surgery. Some of the screws, the titanium screws, I had 6 screws helping fuse 3 vertebrae together, and 2 of them were coming out. So they had to go back in, cut through the scar tissue, take everything out. It was 3 months after the original surgery. So it was, some healing infusion had taken place. And then that just made it that much more difficult to come back from. And I just never got to a point where I could kind of, consistently fall. And
was that caused in the ring, Anthony? Or was that injury?
That was caused by, so I was on the national judo team when I was younger, and I wrestled in university, and I wrestled in high school. And I did a million neck bridges, and I kind of herniated a disc in university, actually. Simple little pop during practice at Concordia University. And what I didn't know was my disc partially herniated. And over the years, that part that's sticking out became a piece of bone.
Wow.
What's it called?
Calcified. Yeah.
Calcified. Yeah.
Sure.
And then, so basically that piece of bone was right against my spinal cord. So any jolt or shot, I would get this shock. And I did my best to protect it my entire WWE career. I used to travel with it's a bar and a head harness. Oh, wow. So any gym you go to, I hook it up to the lat pull down machine and sit there and pull my neck up. And believe it or not, that kept me going. And then we always had chiro and massage on hand. So it was a lot of maintenance. And being one of the smaller guys, when I got ran over, I got ran over. So a lot of whiplash, and eventually it got to the point where, the flare-ups used to be kind of few and far between, and then they got closer and more serious and closer to the point where it was undeniable. I had to do something. And that was it, really. And they kept me around for a couple more years, hoping that I would come back and maybe do something non-physical. But 2016 is when they called and said, yeah, we're not going to renew the contract. And it was like almost 10 years to like the month. It was pretty crazy.
Wow.
And then, so because of all these problems with my neck and my back, and just through trial and error, I was living in Tampa, and I remember I would come home from the road and I would have to put on neoprene sleeves on my knees just to go do shopping. And I had meniscus surgery back in the 90s, 91 on my right knee, 93 on my left knee. And the doctor told me, after a while, wear and tear, you're going to finish off, because it was like 40% of my meniscus was taken out, that you're going to need your knees replaced. And so when I had this knee pain, I'm like, maybe this is it. Maybe that's what he talked about. Maybe my knees have expired and it's time for some new ones.
Yeah.
So then on an unrelated endeavor, it was one New Year's, I decided I was going to cut out because I was consuming a lot of Splenda, like
Sure.
5 to 7 coffees a day, 2 Splendas of coffee. It was like 70 Splendas a week or something. And I used to call my ex-girlfriend, I used to call her Splenda because she wasn't really sweet. She was just fake sweet.
Yeah, right. Artificial.
Yeah. So then when I cut out the Splenda, like 2 weeks later, like my knees were just better. So that was amazing. The first time I really recognized, the significance of artificial sweeteners. And then there was times when I kind of forgot about it, and I bought a protein that had artificial sweeteners. And then that slowly over 2 or 3 weeks, the pain came back.
Amazing. Yeah.
And then I said, damn, I forgot it was the sweeteners. Stopped it again. And 100% absolutely again, like 2 weeks to the day, knee pain's gone again. So then I went into the Popeyes in Mississauga. Mm-hmm. And I said, I need some BCAAs because I was doing the intermittent fasting and I wanted some BCAAs in the morning. And just, randomly the guy at the store pointed to the PVL ones. And that was it. That's why I started. That's how I got introduced to the product. And I absolutely love them, the BCAAs. And it was all, even when I did the, I tried the vegan thing for a while, and they were derived from, I think it was brown rice. Does that make sense? The BCAAs?
Well, actually, you can get BCAAs from, natural, like corn, brown rice, or, there's a nasty thing where a lot of companies get them from bird feathers. So we use the non-GMO, or human hair, actually. That's another disgusting thing. But natural BCAAs are like ours are, and there's other companies too, but are derived from non-GMO corn. So yeah, I know sometimes when you say bird feathers, it's a little, you envision these, giant warehouses full of captured birds. But yeah, there's two different sources. Pillows. Yeah. Anthony, it's amazing. I think that, and I don't know if it's because wrestling is, has got the term entertainment in it now, that I don't think it always gets fair measure as the type of athletes that it takes to go in there and do what you do. And you mentioned injuries and things like that, but the amount of recovery and the things like that you've seen up close, the injuries, I think that gets slighted in the world of wrestling because, it's entertainment and scripted to a degree, but the physicality is next to none.
Yeah, it's crazy. I always thought there should be an off season.
Yeah, actually, that's a great point. There is no off season.
There's no off season.
And the travel's nuts, man. Yeah.
Well, when I was, before, there's like Raw and there's SmackDown. And there was a long time, years, that there was no separate brand. So you had to do both TVs, which meant you went on the road Friday, you worked Friday. And this is the worst part of wrestling, is you finish the show, so you're sweating, you're all fired up, you warmed up, you got all ready, went out there, had a match, shower, cool down, get dressed, and then you go and you sit in the car for like, on average, 4 hours to the next town. So your body's cooling down in that seated posture, and your psoas can get tight and mess with your lower back and all that stuff. And then you do that, 3 or 4 days in a row until you finish up at TV and then the second TV. And then you go home. Back then, we only went home for a day and a half a week. So, laundry, go to dinner with the family and gym tent, and all of a sudden you're back on the road. So it was tough. But in terms of the roster, everybody there was an elite athlete at some point, whether it was an NCAA wrestler, even someone like Randy Orton, he was a state champ as a kid for amateur wrestling. Cody Rhodes, state champ in Georgia as an amateur wrestler. A lot of collegiate athletes. Charlotte Flair, for example, was a volleyball player and I think a gymnast. And even Tamina Snuka was, I don't know if it's Division I, but basketball player. Everyone there is an incredible athlete. Most everyone. Yeah.
It's funny because, just reading up on you and stuff, you came actually into wrestling quite late. Like it wasn't, man, this is my dream as a kid and I'm going to do this. You did, you active in sports, I imagine, as a kid, and you did the judo, university, things like that. You didn't actually get into the road of getting into the wrestling world until your late 20s.
Yeah.
So I was just going to say, did the judo then, because I'm sure wrestling was a big departure, you know, but did judo and that base your foundation allow you to prepare physically for that next step?
Yeah, absolutely. It really allowed me to leapfrog quite a few steps. In judo, we were throwing, and especially judo, because judo is all about throws. So we throw each other all the time. And the most difficult thing for an athlete is to comfortably be thrown. Even if you're wrestling with some big guys and, you know, like, so when I was on the university wrestling team, sometimes some bouncers, you know, they would show up at the practice and maybe they wrestled somewhere, and big jacked up guys. And we would be fighting to get in the front of the line to get them first because they were all stiff and strong. Yeah. But once you pick them up a millimeter off the ground, it was like, you know, fish out of water. They're just holding on tight and they didn't want to go. So, and believe it or not, people doing front shoulder rolls, if you go to WWE tryouts, and these are actually high level athletes that come from, you know, various sports, they got a problem with somersaults and rolls. and that, yeah. And that's a judo breakfall. So definitely, you know, the moves were nothing. The moves you can learn. And if you're an athlete, you can learn the moves and you can learn the moves from watching. And, and to be honest, you know, you see kids suplexing their brothers on the bed. That's probably the right way to do it too. Yeah. But it's all the psychology and the storytelling that takes some time to grasp.
So tell us the road, because I think it's interesting for anyone. I mean, you're a Canadian kid. You're, you know, from Mississauga. You're in judo, mixed martial arts. I mean, the UFC might have seemed like a bigger and more interesting or appropriate draw than, say, the WWE. But tell us about you know, sort of about that road and, you know, those first matches.
When I was wrestling, I had a buddy in Montreal. So he was from Toronto. His dad wrestled in the WWF in the 80s. His dad wrestled for Calgary Stampede.
Yeah, right.
And he had this little private school in Markham, Ontario. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, oh my God, you know, I knew you, even in high school, I would MC events and pep rallies and fashion shows and, you know, a little dabbled in acting. I was always entertaining, class clown, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know, you take that and you take the judo and kind of boil it together. And that's really sports entertainment. And that wasn't my intention. I went to university, went to teachers college. And when I realized that this is a legitimate possibility, that's cool. I thought I'm born for this, you know? So then we learned how to wrestle nice and slow and, you know, just trained a couple times a week. And then a buddy of mine kind of went to bat for me and got me my first match in Orangeville, Ontario. God, it was 2003, I think. And it was cool, you know. Hacksaw Jim Duggan was in the locker room. And sure. A bunch of guys that I still know to this day had the match. And then so I had 6 indie matches, which is like nothing. But immediately I kind of looked around and said, no one's going to find me here. Sure. I'm 29 years old. I got to make this happen. Can't spend 10 years on the indies. So then I started kind of seeing where we're at in terms of the students from my coach that have went and worked all over the world. What connections do we have? Where can I go? And the only one we had at the time was Japan. One of my buddies, we call him Big George. He was wrestling in Japan. So I made a phone call and I packed my bags, sat my daughter down and explained, I got to go on this mission and, I'm going to be back. And the whole goal was to go to Japan, to do really well and then have people in North America notice you and kind of recruit you over, right? Saying, why is this guy doing well there? He should be here. He's one of us. And I don't know where that got into my head. I know someone did that. Someone got over in Japan first and then got recruited. So I thought, because I did judo's Japanese, that was going to be my in. And it actually was. So when I went to Japan, I lived there for a year.
Wow, cool.
And to be like the Japanese judo champion, that's a huge. Judo's huge in Japan. Like it's taught in high schools as a phys ed alternative. Like the All Japan Championships fill a stadium. Like it's pretty. So for me to come as the former Canadian champion, it kind of elevated me there and gave me that little boost that I needed to be able to participate in pro wrestling matches in Japan. And then I overstayed one of my tourist visas. So I was actually banned from Japan for a year. And so then that was when I kind of reformulated the game plan, and I was working. Remember James Rogers, Big
Sure.
James? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He got me a job, and I was bouncing for a few months
Yeah,
till
good
I
old James.
reformulated the game plan and moved to OVW in Kentucky. And then the fact that I just came from Japan kind of elevated me again. And people, they don't know what I was doing in Japan. Just the fact that I came from Japan, they kind of gave me that, after you, sir, you just came from Japan. And so I had to learn the WWE style from scratch
Yeah.
at 31.
Yeah.
And because I was doing like totally different style in Japan. So that's really late, 31, to start learning that style. I think I got signed at 32 and debuted at 33.
And it's amazing. And actually, Santino Marella wasn't your first character, was it? I think you had a couple other names before you.
Yeah.
So talk about, I think the most fascinating thing, and I the great thing about the path you took, like you mentioned, and I was going to ask, were you the class clown, the entertainment? You see you on Aftermath on Sportsnet, and you're on TV now. So that entertainment side was sort of always in you. And you're right in that wrestling in the WWE, I mean, that factor is equally as important. And I'm sure you get a mix of both. You get guys that are really funny but are terrible at wrestling, and the opposite, you probably get guys that are amazing wrestlers but just can't put together on camera. So talk about the development of a character and the entertainment. I mean, because if fans of you, Anthony, if you go back, like there's some hilarious, I mean, you must look back and still crack up at some of the stuff that you did. And this is hilarious stuff, on YouTube, and, people can look it up, but that's fascinating to me, developing the character and how you became Santino.
Yeah. Well, growing up in the 80s, we had incredible television. We had hilarious sitcoms, Three's Company and I Dream of Jeannie and A-Team. And so Santino is just a collection of, so I went to Philip Pocock in Mississauga, and all my friends, they were first-generation Canadians. Their parents came from Slovenia, Poland, Malta, Portugal, Italy, and all our parents, kind of butchered the language a little bit and had funny expressions.
Sure.
Like, for example, Santino, the character, would always say "Sana Magan," and that's my neighbor. Croatian Ivan. He says "Sana Magan," so it's really just an eclectic mishmash of just 80s comedy and all my friends' parents and stuff. But like 2 days before I became Santino, I was driving to a show in Kentucky, and I was Boris Alexiev. I was this Russian character.
The Russian guy, yeah.
And then they called and they just said, can you speak Italian? And like literally a month ago, Dusty Rhodes came down and was talking to our the current roster at OVW at the time, and said, if anyone ever calls, because what happened was a guy, Jack Bull, a friend of mine, Dusty Rhodes called him and said, can you ride a motorcycle? And he thought it was a prank call and someone doing a Dusty Rhodes impression. So he said no. He goes, nope. And he's like, well, can you learn to ride a motorcycle? He goes, nope. He's like, okay, well, thank you very much. Yeah. And then looks at the phone and sees a 203 area code, which is Stamford, Connecticut. So his heart just sinks into his stomach. So anyway, they had a laugh at the misunderstanding. And then Dusty Rhodes came to us, and because his son Cody was in OVW too, and said, if the WWE ever calls you and says, can you do something? The answer is yes, of course.
Yeah.
And then you better learn how to do it. You better pull it off. So they call, and literally that was a month before I get the phone call, and they say, can you speak Italian? And I'm like, sure, yeah, of course. And they said, well, we're sitting here in the room with writers and whatever. Can you say some stuff? And I just said a couple of lines. When I used to drive downtown, I worked downtown for a year, rush hour traffic.
Yeah.
I put a cassette. Actually, I found it recently. It's somewhere here. It was Tourist Italian. And I used to play it every day, religiously, every day, both sides, just let it loop. And I just recited a couple lines from that tape. And I could hear them sitting at that speakerphone, kind of looking around saying, I don't know, it sounds
fun.
And they go, okay, we're going to fly you out tomorrow. And they flew me out tomorrow. And like I flew to Milan, and then they did the storyline where they put me in the audience and plucked me out. And that's it, man. From one day I was Boris, and the next day I was Santino. And then the character really had to kind of I had to evolve quick, you know, and
Yeah.
Getting there is one thing. Like I had zero fear, I had zero doubt that this was going to happen. I was going to get signed. I was going to work there. But as soon as you get there, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I got to stay here. And I don't want to be the guy that worked for WWE for a month, like, you know, lost in obscurity.
That's
and
right.
I want to stay here for a long time. So there was a vacancy in the comedic role. And I sunk my teeth in, and I almost had no competition for years in terms of a comedic spot.
Yeah, it was very, very unique. It's funny. Did you face because you know it's in a way, and it's hilarious, but it sort of enforcing a stereotype. Did you ever get backlash for having to be this character, or was it? Did they, you know, the Italian community, for instance, did they embrace it? Were you a hero? Like, well, how did that?
Well, that's funny because I was nervous about that.
Sure.
Because I'm like, you know, you don't have to look very deep to find out I'm Canadian. So I'm playing an Italian, but I'm playing a goofy Italian.
Sure.
And I was worried about the fact that the Italians are going to say, this guy's not even Italian. And so I started studying Italian. First it was with Rosetta Stone. And so my father was, he became a Canadian citizen after I was born. So I'm entitled to, so I have dual citizenship. So I actually got a passport and I'm an Italian citizen. So I kind of, and I learned the language. So I knew I had to return eventually. And a year and a half later, we went back and I cut a promo in Italian in the ring. And so it was okay to the point where some Italians were like, he really is Italian.
You sold it.
And I tricked them. I sold it, yeah. Years later, I actually studied even more, a higher level of Rosetta Stone. I had a tutor, and I actually went back to Italy and was capable of doing a live interview on the radio.
That's great.
On TV. Yeah, that my Italian it's, you know, faded since, right? I haven't practiced as much. But
what's the most intimidating match you ever remember having?
Oh, man. Well, you know Mark Henry is, right?
Sure. Strong.
Yeah. So Mark Henry, there's a wicked video about him out lately too, talking about because it was sports entertainment, people might not take the moniker the world's strongest man serious.
Right.
But it goes through and lists his accomplishments. He is legitimately the world's strongest man.
I know. Unbelievable.
And if he stayed in strength sports when he started, he, you know, potentially would have been the greatest of all time. So some of his records still stand to this day. He's incredible. So he's a 420-pound guy walking around. And one time we're at a gym in Scotland or in the UK. They have a shuttle bus taking us from there. Whoever wants to go work out to the hotel and back. Anyway, Mark Henry gets on he didn't work out all the time, but he's a freak, an absolute freak. So I'm doing tricep push downs. And Mark Henry kind of walks over, looks up at the chin-up bar, and reaches up, wide grip chin-ups. And I stop my workout. I'm like, that guy can't do pull-ups. This guy's 420 pounds.
Yeah.
8 perfect wide grip chin-ups at 420
Yeah, that's
pounds.
incredible. That's incredible.
So one time we're it's called gorilla position. It's like the room right where the curtain, if you walk through the curtain, you're in that room. That's where Vince is and the monitors and everything. And he just looked at me and he just said, you know, when I go out there, he cursed because I'm fucking bulletproof.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And he got so serious and goes, this is no joke. And I just thought, oh my God. And then he went like, just kidding. But
that would have been enough.
That was scary, man. He is, I asked him one time, I said, because his thing is his grip. He has that dumbbell called the unliftable. He's like one of the only.
Oh, right. Yeah.
One of the only guys to get it up.
Yeah.
And anyway, I said, can I just like, let me feel the grip. And he slowly applied more pressure till I went, okay, ow. I go, oh my God. It was like caved in my ulna and radius. Like it was like a pneumatic squeeze. It was incredible. He's super, super strong. It's almost unfathomable. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. He was a freak of nature. I think a lot of people would find it interesting, the subtleties of your communication in the ring, like how the fans kind of drown it out, but there's sort of some communication there. Okay, like what I'm going to do next, how I'm going to finish you. You know, if anyone's watched the Macho Man Savage documentary or others, like you, or the Hogan with Andre the Giant, where there's a little bit of talk about like during the match, and so do things go wrong? Do things go unscripted? Like, how do you recover from that? Like, that's a whole really fascinating dynamic.
Yeah, that is good. So these days, a lot of the kids, they memorize their matches. Actually, apparently Macho Man was notorious for that. He would give you a sheet of paper that had your match like move for move written down on it. And the old school guys, the bad guy was always the veteran. And there's the young baby face guy, and the bad guy always called the match. So they would be like, okay, you're going to win with a small package, and I'll see you out there. And just the good guy's job was to respond to everything the bad guy did. And I like that way, because that way you're communicating. Sure. I didn't realize that you actually talked, right? My first few matches, we didn't talk. And you're supposed to really communicate, but it's not like I'm going to tell you, pick me up, grab my head, shoot me off. Okay. You're gonna have plays like a quarterback says blue 52, and everyone knows what they're doing. So in the back, we would have a conversation, and I'd say, okay, you're gonna gorilla press me over your head. So I'll do something, and I'll just say gorilla press. And I'll shoot, and you reverse, you pick me up, and we know everything we're going to do from that point, but I'm just going to say gorilla press. And then we know how I'm going to get out of it and what's going to happen and everything. So that makes it easy when you're able to call plays instead of calling word for word. But yeah, things to get back on track when things go, awry, that takes experience and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Was there a hero of yours that you had that was kind of like, wow, I just met so and so when you finally met? Yeah, everyone would say that, right?
Yeah, Hogan, because in Canada we didn't. I mean, I think in Toronto we basically just got the WWF, right, as a kid. There was some other stuff at really obscure times. There was something out in Vancouver. What was it called? I even forget. Sergeant Al Tomko or something. Yeah. And then there was Grand Prix wrestling in the Maritimes. But I just had access to WWF, so I was a Hulkamaniac. And this is around. So WrestleMania 1, I'm like 9 or 10 years old. So it's like I'm prime time at the age where this is real. He's a legitimate superhero, larger than life. Fighting a giant, like crazy. So. The first time I had like a 45-minute conversation was at WrestleMania, and he goes, "Hey, Cobra," and he goes, "You're my wife's favorite, man." And so we ended up having this conversation. And I look over at one point, and I'm a Hulkamaniac, man. Yeah. That's pretty amazing. He popped, and yeah, it was cool, man. He was, but also Jimmy Snuka. Oh, Jimmy Snuka was probably my first
Superfly. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a fun moment with him. So one WrestleMania, I was the Santina character.
Yes.
I came out as supposed to be my sister. So I used to have this tradition where after TV, the adrenaline, the rush out there, the crowd, thousands of people, I would go in the loading docks and bum a smoke off someone out there,
Yeah, sure.
So after the Santina thing, I mean, that was because what happens is the way the stadium is designed, all the energy from everybody in the arena just meets at the ring. And the first time I ever debuted, you feel like you're different. Like you are supercharged with this crazy kinetic energy that the entire audience has just given you. And you think if 20,000 people, each person gives you this little drop of energy times 20,000, it's really exhilarating. And I can understand why, some musicians, they try and chase that high with drugs, unfortunately, because it's a real genuine high. And after something like that, extreme pleasure, I wanted to smoke. So I went out to the loading dock, and the only one there was Jimmy Snuka. And so I'm having a cigarette with Jimmy Snuka, and he looks over and he goes, "I saw you out there, brother." He goes, "You were zoomed in."
Yeah.
You zoomed in. I guess he meant like I was focused or dialed
Yeah.
in or
Dialed
something,
in.
but it made sense at the time.
That was his
Yeah,
version.
and yeah, he
We'll
was
talk
awesome.
about sort of the last big wrestling question here, but the spectacle that is WrestleMania. I mean, the Super Bowl of wrestling, like, that's like the biggest. I mean, thousands, the record-setting crowds. I mean, to be part of that spectacle, what was that like?
Oh man, and my first WrestleMania was a little bit different, but it's so people come up to you backstage and they say Happy WrestleMania, and I'm like it's a big thing. It's a year's.
Oh yeah,
It's our Super Bowl. It's our New Year's Eve. It's everything. I was doing a bit with Snoop Dogg on my first WrestleMania. So as soon as I get to the building, they go, yeah, Snoop Dogg's in the bus, and we'll go over and just have a chat with what's going to happen after. So I go, okay, knock on the door and Snoop Dogg's bus. And I walk in, he goes, hey, Santino. And he hands me a blunt. And that's lit already, right? I'm not going to be the dork that says, oh, no, thank you, sir, Snoop Dogg, sir. So anyway, I have a couple hits on that. And then the rest of my WrestleMania was pretty interesting.
you're a little
I was
loose.
walking around and I was a little loose and I was smiling a lot. And
Maybe hungry.
The first time you get out there and you hear the crowd, and it's keep adding zeros, right? There's 80 people in the audience. That's not that spectacular. 800, it's already a good house. 8,000, awesome. 80,000, it's a different ball game, and it's a deeper roar. And they're also farther away. It's in a football arena instead of a hockey arena.
Oh yeah.
And you got to look around at one point and go, oh my god. And you don't want to lose focus of what you're doing, but you got to try and find a second to look around. It's absolutely incredible. Just driving up to the building and seeing all the trucks and billboards and thousands and thousands of people from all over the world that come. I think half the audience is from Europe.
Yeah,
these guys amazing. From Australia and people coming from Brazil and South Africa. It's truly an international event, and for a lot of people, what they do is they make it a part of their vacation.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They say, yeah, well, we'll take a week off in April and we'll go to WrestleMania, and so everyone's just in a super awesome mood. These are huge wrestling fans, coming together for the biggest wrestling event of the year. It's awesome.
You talk about, and we talk about, we interview a lot of athletes on the podcast, and it's to a T. Athletes miss that the adrenaline, the camaraderie. You talk about it being like a rock star addiction. Going through all those years and injuries, and you finally having to retire. But is that what you miss the most? Is the camaraderie and sort of that performance, or did you kind of get tired out and traveled out and injury out? Were you ready to go?
Yeah. I was kind of over it near the end a little bit.
Yeah.
But the one thing I do miss, so I went, they had a Raw reunion last year, and we flew to Tampa. These guys, and I didn't realize how much I missed just being around.
Oh yeah.
We were in the hotel bar, and like Booker T and Stone Cold and Undertaker and Pat. I mean, I'm looking around. I'm like, damn, I kind of forgot these are my friends. You know what I mean? I've been home for so long. And that part is, I shut down the bar both nights just because I was on vacation. Yeah. And I just wanted to hang out with everybody. And I missed that part. The locker room's awesome. And, if you do this for a living, you probably work well with others and you probably have a good sense of humor because you're pretending you're fighting for a living, right? You got to have a good sense of humor to do that. So everyone's really cool. And, it's just jokes, we're laughing all the time. And
amazing career. And, you must be satisfying because you did, get some hardware, some belts, tag team championship. Like there's some real, some flagship moments that you had for sure. So moving on, and, anyone local here would know the Battle Arts Academy. You were kind of the founder of that. And you're involved in so much, now as you in your sort of your second career, training, coaching, judo. How do you divide your time now, and what's sort of, what's the day in the life look like now for Anthony?
Oh gosh, well, I'll go back to pre-COVID because COVID is a little different.
Yeah,
pre-COVID, I didn't realize I was burning candles at both ends. because I was doing I did a show for Impact Wrestling and Fight Network. That was one of the a web series that we did.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's a 2-hour show. You got to drive downtown. You got to drive back. So that was like a 4 or 5 hour chunk out of my Wednesday. I did, you know, Aftermath. That's kind of the days written off there.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, and I would try and take Mondays off because I worked on the weekends. And all of a sudden, I'm out of time, and I have so much stuff to do. And then I would make appearances, like my own appearances, where someone flies me to go sign autographs or something on a weekend, or we would put on our own shows on the weekend. And all of a sudden, I remember one time I worked like 7 days a week for like almost 4 months or something.
Yeah, it's too much, man.
And, you know, toddler at home, and yeah, it was too much. And I was getting burnt out. Even my daughter, she's an up and coming wrestler. She's 25 years old.
Yeah.
And she's like, I've never seen you so angry since you opened Battle Arts. And I was like, yeah, I know. I'm just constantly out of time. There's so much to do. And but it was all stuff that I liked. You know, I'd fly to Budapest to do commentary for a judo tournament. I love judo. I love doing commentary. I love putting on shows. It was so much that I was starting to resent it almost.
Yeah, sure.
A little bit. And then COVID came, and all of a sudden, the thought of the gym's going to be closed for a couple months was like incredible. I felt like
Isn't that fascinating?
The last day of school in elementary school in summer. I was going on summer vacation, and it was great. My wife and I, you know, we got closer than ever, and we were riding our bikes every day. Everything shut down. And,
it's kind of a nice byproduct.
I used to dream about being bored. Like, imagine just the feeling of having nothing to do.
Wow.
And I remember the first day I'm sitting there, I'm like, I got nothing to do today. I'm gonna have a nap. Like, this is awesome.
Unreal.
It's great. So now that, you know, we took that, what we learned from that experience, and we so I sold part of Battle Arts.
Mm-hmm.
I no longer run the day-to-day operations. I stepped away from coaching judo.
Okay.
And I'm still coaching professional wrestling, because that's really the heart and soul of Battle Arts. We do have, you know, jiu-jitsu and wrestling and boxing and everything, but the heart and soul is professional wrestling. And I followed the principles. When I was in Japan, the pro wrestlers and MMA fighters, they train together and they crisscross. Like, a pro wrestler will go do an MMA fight, MMA guy will go do a pro wrestling match. So I love that mentality, and I try to duplicate that. The gym I trained at in Japan was called Battle Arts, but it was like one word, just Battle Arts.
Right. Okay.
And so I made Battle Arts Academy, and I brought over my coach from Japan. He was here for 5 years teaching catch wrestling and submission wrestling. So I stepped away from that. The commentary for judo hasn't really started because we just kind of had a couple events now. Sportsnet we're doing from home, and so we just moved. You moved too. I know we moved 2 months ago. We moved out of Mississauga up to a tiny township,
right
near Midland,
right
Wasaga Beach and stuff.
Sure.
And absolutely love the change in pace, the change in lifestyle. And we actually have a detached 1,000 square foot building on our property that we're converting into a home gym.
That's fantastic.
Training studio.
Yeah.
And it's actually looking awesome. It has like a gas fireplace, a giant 8-foot ceiling fan. We got one of every cardio equipment, you know, dumbbell rack, squat rack, and a couple of machines, you know, lap pull downs, pec deck, and all that stuff. 40 feet of turf. So it's going to be our little family business. You know, we take like maximum 5 clients. I don't want to work more than 3 hours a day max, and that's it. So I'm kind of semi-retired, at least for 2021. We're gonna just relax, and once judo gets going again, I'll go do some events there, and I'm just gonna do less. I'm just gonna. I have to learn to say no when opportunities come.
Yeah, and, you find yourself in
happiness levels.
Yeah. Find yourself in a pretty good place. You know, I'd be remiss sort of in our final set of questioning here, and then we'll go through what we call rapid fire, which is just some questions to you. Yeah. Talk about, your training and nutrition over the years. Obviously, you gravitated towards, we're so happy to support you and your wife, with supplements, but God, you've been through such a diverse, your body's taken a beating, some of the training recovery, maybe some of the advice you give to, people that you train, your philosophies on that.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. I've tried everything over the years, just to say I did it. I tried the vegan thing, tried the vegetarian thing. I tried the keto thing. I tried intermittent fasting.
Wow.
And, so a lot of science. I had a minor in exercise science and a physical education degree and stuff, but also experience. When I was a kid with on the judo team, we would have nutritional seminars, and we were coached in that regard. A friend of mine, Terry Frendo, Inside Fitness magazine.
Fitness, yeah.
A lot of interesting articles on there. Yeah. He was actually one of the when we started Battle Arts, he was involved in that as well. So basically, one of the things that worked for me, it's kind of what low carb.
Sure.
But then as I'm reading and studying, I'm seeing that for athletic performance, carbohydrates are really important.
Yeah, sure.
And the easiest thing to do in terms of, because there's two things: you have to perform well and look good. So cutting out the carbs and doing the keto thing worked for me. But I have because of my back issues, I'm going to follow this anti-inflammatory diet.
Yeah.
I had stem cells injected in my neck in February.
Wow.
The stem cells?
No, Tom Brady does the anti-inflammatory. He's big on that, anti-inflammation.
Oh, yeah. So I had stem cells injected in my neck and my back in February in Colombia of 2020. Oh. And I love the way they combined, like, for example, if you go to the doctor here, they're going to give you surgery or give you some pills. They don't really sit you down and talk about the diet that has to go along with this procedure. So post-procedure, they sat me down. They said no dairy for minimum 6 months. They tried to say no caffeine, but I'm like, that's going to be tough. I was down to one medium coffee a day. It was actually really worked well. And they were breaking down, and basically they wanted me to follow this anti-inflammatory diet because, one, it's just a more comfortable environment for your body. And two, the stem cells are going to attack the inflammation as opposed to the disc regeneration in which we wanted it. So at the 6 month mark, I started feeling better. And I'm like, oh man, this stuff's working. So I started having a little cheese and, 2 coffees a day and 3 coffees a day and tons of feta cheese. And all of a sudden the back pain's coming back. So I don't, but it happened at the same time winter's kicking in. So I'm like, is it the cold weather?
Right.
So anyway, I know what it is. I'm not eating properly. So I'm going to use January, and our gym is supposed to be done mid-January.
That's cool.
So in the beginning, when Battle Arts closed down, I brought home some equipment, and we were doing some functional training, pull-ups and push-ups and lots of stuff at home with bands and kettlebells. And I got kind of bored of it, to be honest. And then we were going back to the gym a little bit for that time there. And that was fun again. And then that got closed again. So my wife, she's an animal. She can train with a rubber band for like 2 hours, and get everything done. I don't have that, discipline where I can sit on
she competes actually, doesn't she?
She used to, yeah.
Yeah, she used to. Well, that's great.
Super mommy.
Anthony, we could probably do 5 different segments. You've led such a kind of a fascinating life here, but we'll kind of leave it with this rapid fire segment that we do, just sort of bring out some personality questions. And then we'll leave it at that. PlayStation or Xbox?
I don't play video games.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Pizza or sushi?
Whoa. Those are our 2 cheats. We have pizza or sushi. So we had, man. Oh, okay. Sushi.
Jordan or LeBron?
Jordan.
There you go. Rock or rap?
Rock.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, it's not a sandwich.
White bread or whole wheat?
Whole wheat.
This one I already know. Hogan or Macho Man?
Hogan.
There you go, Anthony. Well, Friends, you can find Anthony at the Milan Miracle. That's your IG handle. You can see him on Aftermath. And we're really happy you spent some time with us today, and we're happy to have you as part of the PVL family as well, Anthony. So thanks very much.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to picking the right products to go along with that anti-inflammatory diet. I'm going to do a little research with regards to what animal products are the least inflammatory. Because I really want to sprinkle in some eggs and some whey protein into what I'm going to be doing. I want to go vegan. So I don't want to be a vegan. Yeah, but it's looking like I may have to go in that direction anyway. So we're going to pick the right products and get it done.
You bet. Well, until next time, guys, be safe, be well. From your friends at PVL. Thanks very much.